Dysfunction mapping is a tool, but it is also a credential. Dysfunction mapping is a form of, I'm not going to say just root cause analysis, but a empirical form of applying root cause analysis and critical thinking. Let me speak clearly. After completing the course, there is a credential called the Dysfunction Mapping Practitioner that it is issued and will be available on Credly, so you can add it to your CV, your resume, and so forth, and people can come back and look at it. And if I have anything to say about it, we will be setting up a system on the basis of this for you to be able to turn around and demonstrably show how you helped. Because a lot of people ask the question, hey, Howard, how did you help us organization improve? Well, here you go. And that would be nice because we know for a fact, especially for those that are already in place working with teams, a lot of what you do today feels like a firefighter. Okay. Let me see by show of hands. I know some of you have your video off, but don't be afraid. Show me a reaction. How many of you feel like you're firefighters out there today?
That's always the work.
Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes it's difficult to get buy-in when you want to make something better? Show of hands. It's difficult to make buy-in. No, of course. Okay. And then last but not least, do you find it challenging to show the value that you're delivering and that it's having an impact? Show of hands. Well, this is what we're here to talk about today, because that's the part of the idea behind dysfunction mapping. It's a system of thinking behind how you serve a particular purpose for what you do today. It doesn't matter whether you're a product owner, a scrum master, an agile coach. You can use this as a tool to help you achieve some sort of purpose. And by the way, it's collaborative. It's meant to be used and shared. It's not meant for Steven to sit in a dark room with a little light shining down on his monitor saying, ha, 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 I've got a plan for how I'm going to improve my scrum team. They'll never see it coming. No, Steven, that's not what this is about. That's not how we do things. We want to include people. We want to collaborate with them. Since I promised the first few of you who were here when we first started about that this is not a PowerPoint-driven conversation, this talk is 100% 100 PowerPoint free. How do I know this? Well, because it's all here on this board that I'm going to share with you now. So if you look in the chat, the link's there. Okay? I'm going to do a little bit of assuming that most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Miro or Mural or something like that. What I'm going to ask you to do is to join me here and join me here quickly because we do have a lot to cover in the hour that remains. We do have a lot to cover in the hour that remains. All right. Now, this is not the default dysfunction mapping. This is Marcelo's dysfunction mapping. And the reason why is because I tend to tweak things. I'm a little bit of an experimenter. So if you guys are here with me where I am now, and I'm going to hide your cursors because I know where you guys are. Okay. I want to do a little bit of what's called appreciative inquiry, just a tiny, tiny bit. Okay, I want you to think about the environment that you work in today and take a minute, just 90 seconds. Don't overthink it. I'm going to put a timer on the clock. 1 minute, 30 seconds. All right. And by the way, there's plenty of stickies for everyone. No one's going to be without stickies. Please don't steal somebody else's stickies. I'm just saying. All right. And answer the question of what's working today. Let's do a little bit of appreciation for what is working in the things that we do today. Really quickly, I'm going to turn on the timer because, like I said, we do got a lot of time to go. What is working in our work environment today? I don't care if you're using Scrum, Kanban, Safe. I don't care. What works for you? What works for your team? What makes you satisfied when things happen a certain way?
Okay. Even if we do a million things, right?
Doesn't matter. Pick something, whatever comes to mind. And by the way, that's a good thing that she asked that because a lot of these questions that I'm going to pose, because this is going to be driven by questions, are going to be kind of rapid fire because basically what I've done is I've condensed an entire day's worth of work into 1 hour. That's my product goal for today, is to get us through one set of dysfunction mapping as a group in 1 hour when there's 27, 26 of us working at the same time. I'm not going to count myself. I'm only counting on you guys. And if you don't want to jump in the mirror, that's okay. No problem, right? Okay. Fantastic. I see a lot of feedback about communication, good feedback, collaboration, continuous improvement, honest retrospectives, learning, collaboration. Fantastic. A lot of good stuff that's working. Okay. Well, sorry to break it to you, but the first step in our journey through dysfunction mapping is, well, now that we've taken and done a little bit of appreciation for what's working, we're going to have an honest conversation of, well, what's not working the way that it should, MC? I mean, what could be better? It's just not working. It's just not what we want. It's not desired. It is very clear that it's not desired. For this one, I'm actually going to give you 3 minutes because maybe that's not in terms of the things that you actually think of saying. You walk around during the day and you're thinking about it, but you're not really putting it into words. Well, now I need you to put it into words. I'm glad that Saruchi showed up because she's actually been through this workshop and maybe she can help us out a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and turn on the timer and grab a sticky and say what's clearly not working the way that it should. Just say it, whatever it is. And I don't mean necessarily about not getting a job per se. I appreciate that. But I'm talking about for those that are actually working today, because this is about the work that we're doing in our work environment, what's not working. I don't care whether you're using Scrum, Kanban, Safe, it's all up for grabs. What's not working? I'm going to turn on the timer now. And by the way, it's okay to be silently writing. Don't overthink it. I'm sure that each one of you know that one thing that, hey, if only this were working better. Think about that for a second. If only this were working better, okay? If only this were working better. And I see some very interesting ideas, very interesting ideas. Wonderful. You've got 2 minutes, so please keep throwing some stuff in there. And for those wondering, because this is a recording, this is water with ice. Fantastic. And just as we said, don't steal somebody else's stickies, don't cover up someone else. We've got plenty of space on the board. Hey, and I'll say this. If you've stated something that's rather general, I'll choose one in general. I want to challenge you. Don't be general. Tell me specifically. If you have a concern about communication, give me an instance of communication not working. Communication not working. Try to be a little more specific. Some of these stickies are quite specific. We want a little bit more specificity. Generalized is good, but we want a little bit more specificity, and it'll make it very clear when I'm done, well, when we're done, why the specificity mattered. Why the specificity mattered. We've got about 24 seconds left. This is fantastic. This is fantastic. This is great. Great. Got 8 seconds left. Go. Go. Okay, let's put a pause on that, right? Because in dysfunction mapping, this is where we start, eh? The things that aren't working how they should, we call a dysfunction. Now, I understand the word dysfunction is a little funky, okay? It's a little challenging, okay? But if we're a little bit open to feeling a little uncomfortable, we'll find out that it's not such a scary word, okay? Because really what it means is it's not working the way that we think it should be. And that's important. And the reason it's important is because once we start digging into it, we're going to connect what's not working with why it's so important that it works. We're going to connect it back with the why, okay? To give you an example of the kind of stuff that we encounter, we're working today, I've brought you over a little sample from the dysfunction mapping exercise inside of the workshop. Uh-oh, Natalia, we've got dysfunctional Scrum. The developers are not taking accountability for the quality of their work. Whoops. That's not working well. The customer is unhappy. The stakeholders are dissatisfied because the customers are unhappy. It's a dysfunction. Happens to be a Scrum dysfunction, but we'll go with it for now. So this is an example of a discrete or a specific dysfunction. We know clearly that if the quality of the product isn't what we want it to be, it means that our developers, we need to help them out somehow. Any questions about this before I move on? I want to leave the door open for each one of these steps for any questions. Any questions so far? Going once, twice? No questions. Okay, very good. All right. So, by the way, every one of these exercises is going to use something from a previous exercise, which is why it's so important for us not to skip. The next is to go in and say, well, okay, let's consider these dysfunctions that we've all shared with each other. And first but foremost, which one of these could be better things seem like the most small win? You've heard the phrase small wins? Which one of these things, if we were to pursue trying to do something about, seem like a good small win if we were to choose it? And so what I'd like you guys to do is to, and I'm going to shut up and you guys are going to have to talk to each other, is to choose from here what the two most important ones that are small wins should be. And luckily for us, we have a way of doing that, because I'm going to give 2 minutes and 2 votes to the sticky notes that are here inside of this voting area that I've created that I want you guys to choose from. So each one of you is going to get 2 votes. 2 votes. You got to pick the 2. Okay. Or actually, you know what? I'll give you 3 votes. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. 2 minutes to pick the 2 most important ones. And then we're going to take those 2 and then we're going to copy them into the next exercise. You ready? Go. Okay, and we'll see when the time is up.
You could have at least given us time to read through all of these, but all right.
Again, I'm trying to fit the entire class of 8 hours into 1 hour, Jackie.
Got it. Yes, sir.
I'm going to challenge you here, my friend, especially for you experienced scrub masters. I'm sorry if I set the bar a little bit higher. Yeah, but you guys are choosing, and we'll see the answers when we're done. I'm going to get rid of some of the lines that are floating around here. Those lines always seem to come up, and that's okay. That's okay.
I'm a little lost. What to do? What you want to
Voting. You're voting on things, Joanne.
Okay.
So am I just putting a 1 or just what?
No, if you're in the Miro board, you should be in the voting session.
I am.
And then just click on it.
Oh, thank you.
Once all the votes are done or the time box has expired, the results will show up.
I forgot how to vote on Miro. What do you do? You put a star next to it?
I might
No,
see a voting option.
you should
on my
just click
side.
it.
I click on it, but I don't see a voting option on here. on my side.
Scroll down.
Depending on where you are, I'm going to bring you to me, Viral.
Yeah.
he had to join the voting.
Oh, I didn't click on that. I guess that's why.
Yeah, join the voting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't click on that, so that's why I can't vote. Okay, thank you.
Are you trying to vote?
Marcelo, can you put up on join the voting again so people who didn't vote get to vote?
Once the voting is started, you can't, unless I cancel it and create a new one, the join to voting shows up on your end, Julie.
Oh, okay.
I don't control it once Miro takes over.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Okay.
Where do you see the vote? I was not able to do it.
You should see it on the Zoom right now, Joanne. Do you see the Zoom?
Yeah.
We got a lot of 1 votes, but we got 1 4 vote and 2 2 vote.
I
Yeah.
don't think vague and unrealistic acceptance criteria is easier to do than empathy. Or I think making clear boundaries and respecting them is easier than vague and than acceptance criteria.
I get it. And that's the power of facilitation and the team deciding.
All right.
Normally we would have these conversations, Julie. We would have these conversations in the workshop, Julie. And we
Okay.
would have you guys hug it out. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to bring this over. If you guys are following me in the Zoom, and by the way, forgive me if I'm being a little directive, specifically because of what you were talking about, Julie. I'm going to choose for us for the moment, lack of participation during sprint planning as the other small win.
I agree with that. I think that's right.
Okay. Why? Because I get empathy, but we would probably be a long time discussing the details. Why? Because the next step of the exercise is, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do, is capture some ideas of why this matters. Why does being clear and realistic about acceptance criteria matter to you? Why is this? In other words, things that seem to be the reason why they're happening. We call those symptoms. And to give you an idea of what a symptom could look like, for example, this Scrum team that has a problem with their quality always seems to have too much work in progress in their backlog when they're working on. So we want to know what's the symptom that could be why their quality is affected. Does that make sense to you guys? What sort of things could be causing this to happen? So tell me why. Why do you think these things are happening? And again, 2 minutes, go. Why are these things happening? Why do you think these things happen with our teams? And again, it's totally open for you to theorize. The answer is it's okay to guess. Take your best guess, people. Throw as many stickies as you can think of as to why do we end up with vague and unrealistic criteria? Why do we have lack of poor participation in sprint planning?
So we're doing both stickies, right, Coach?
Both stickies. That's right. Choose whichever one you want. Whichever one gets the most interaction wins. Because as I said, we're dealing with a time box and we actually still have several exercises to go.
I cannot find my sticky when it comes to, I can't even find this question.
Okay, I brought you to me, Jackie.
Yep,
So now you should be looking at the same thing that everybody else is.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for reminding me, because that way I will bring everyone to me as we go through each step. I'm going to give 1 more minute. Wonderful. This is great. I'm going to blow up the sticky a little bit more. And I'm going to put these little stickies out here because I want to create a clear distinction between the thing that we're trying to address and the things that we feel are causing it, that are demonstrably rationales or reasons why this is happening. Okay? These are the symptoms. Okay?
We're not getting a negative for bad spelling, right?
Not at all. Not at all. Okay? And we're going to reuse, as I said, we're going to reuse these things. Maybe in the future, we'll do one of these things in midday because it is 6:42. Unfortunately, I'm making everybody think awesome. Yeah. Okay, so let's spread things out. All right, so here we've got lots of good reasons for why we're experiencing. We've got a lot of good reasons for why each one of these two are happening. Very important to have an understanding of this, the symptoms that you're seeing that are bringing this thing about. What are we really trying to do? Probably what I would say is the most important part of dysfunction mapping, which is to connect these things that we call dysfunctions with the purpose that we're trying to serve. Okay, and what do I mean by that? Let's look at one of these. Okay, and so I'm going to set these up here. And Joanne, get yourself ready because I'm about to create a second round of voting. Okay, you're going to vote on the most important thing that you can think of that has the most important purpose behind it. In other words, out of these two things, I want you to choose one, taking into account all the symptoms that you guys described. Okay, which one has the most important purpose behind it?
What does that mean?
You think of what your team is trying to do, Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it does things for different reasons. Which one of these two, having good acceptance criteria or participating during a sprint, which one has the most powerful purpose for that team to accomplish its goals, in your opinion? Out of the two that are here, Joanne.
Oh, that's a tough one.
I understand, and that's why our time box is our enemy. The voting is now started. I'm not doing the voting, so you guys have to decide. You only get one vote. We're going to choose one.
Okay.
In the workshop, we would consider many different things, but we don't have time to consider all of them. Join the voting. Either or. 14 of 14 have voted. Okay, folks, for those of you who are not on the board, I'm going to apologize, but I'm going to end our voting now. And there are our results. By a somewhat decent margin, vague and unrealistic acceptance criteria has been chosen as the dysfunction that we're going to look at. And so the next step is to connect this idea of acceptance criteria with what we call the purpose. In other words, what sort of thing are we serving by trying to improve the fact that we don't have good acceptance criteria? In other words, if we didn't have vague and unrealistic acceptance criteria, we would be able to do what? What sort of purpose would it serve to have clear and realistic acceptance criteria? Did you hear that?
Yep.
What purpose would it serve to have clear and realistic acceptance criteria? What sort of thing would it let us achieve? I'm going to now not vote. I'm going to set us, let's try 3 minutes again. You guys did well the last time I did that. Let's do 3 minutes again. Go. Excellent. I'm going to stop the followers now that you guys are here with me. So let's put some ideas behind what purpose are we trying to serve by improving our acceptance criteria, stated a different way. Okay. Now, sometimes things have different purposes that they could help. In other words, having good acceptance criteria, as you guys are pointing out, might have different things that could be served by having clear acceptance criteria. Unfortunately, because of time, we can't choose all of them that we're going to try to do something about. Surprise, surprise, we're going to do another little voting. Once you guys have put some out there, we're going to create another voting situation for you, and you guys are going to have to choose. What sort of purpose do you want to affect? by improving acceptance criteria. And you've got about a minute and a half to go. So give yourself some options, okay? Don't crowd them in there. Spread them out. And take a chance that if you've already said something, read what somebody else wrote. Maybe they have something that you might like. I probably will reorganize them a little bit, but as you're capturing your ideas, spread them out so you can think clearly and get your voice heard. You know what they say, let's get our story straight. Okay, folks, sorry about that, but we're kind of out of time. I'm going to let you guys choose 2 of them just to be sure that we've got enough to work with, even though we're only going to, at the end of the day, try to serve one purpose for the purposes of this exercise. And I'm letting you choose 2 of them, 2 votes on the sticky notes, 2 minutes, 2 votes per person.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
And go. I'm not going to vote. The 2 things that will be positively impacted by all the stuff that we're going to try to do. 13 of 13 people voted. Pardon me, but I'm going to end it for all. End the session. Boom, boom. Ha! Wow. We have a lot of 2s, but
It looked like this 3, the 2 better, they sound familiar.
possibly we could have affinity matched them. But we have a clear winner, though, Joanne, right? A
That is
better, clear understanding of how the product should function.
That is true.
We have a clear winner. So for right now, go along with me. We're going to try on our thinking caps because I'm going to copy this purpose over here and the dysfunction it was affected by. You guys see that?
Mhm.
So now I have the dysfunction, a purpose together, and I'm now going to bring over all these into here, and I'm going to call these the symptoms that they're affected, that you're seeing because of it. Symptoms observed is what I'm going to call it. These are the things that you guys are observing are happening. Looking at the dysfunction, the purpose that we are trying to serve, the thing that we want to improve, and the symptoms that we're observing. In other words, why is this happening? This part of the exercise is now to ask yourselves, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Brainstorm using some stickies of things, small or large, doesn't matter, that you think you could actually do to affect those symptoms in some way. Any symptom, doesn't matter, any symptom. Things that you could do that could potentially solve your problem with some symptom that will alleviate the dysfunction and get us to our purpose. Does that make sense how I described that? Something we could do that will affect the symptom that we're seeing, that will alleviate the dysfunction that's keeping us from our purpose. Do you guys hear that? Okay, 5 minutes. This is a total brainstorm, folks. Go for it. And this is really one of those free-for-all sorts of things. Got to think of not just the action you could take, be thinking of how you could do it. How could I do this? Even including who do I have to involve with it? This exercise is one of the longer running exercises inside of the dysfunction mapping workshop because it asks you to consider a great number of different variables. And that's why I gave you 5 minutes in this sort of tiny little time box that we're using. Because normally this exercise would take about 20 minutes to half an hour. That kind of a thing. I'm going to give you 4 minutes in a voting session. You're going to get 2 votes with 4 minutes to read over. I'm going to turn on the voting and bring you to me. You get 2 votes. You get 4 minutes to read through and decide what gets your vote for what potential solution you want to try. Ready? Go. All I'm going to say is use your best judgment, folks. And I'm ending it for all. This was very painful.
What is
This is very painful. I'm sorry. I don't like to do that. My facilitation nerves are a little frazzled by having to do that. But we have several 3s. So it's going to be a little challenging to decide what to do next because here's the thing. Once we have some solution, it's really a hypothesis on our part. It's a guess. Let's be honest. We're trying to guess that doing some of these things, like regularly conduct backlog refinement session where acceptance criteria reviewed and refined, we're guessing that that's going to work. And I have a question from Jason who's raised his hand. Yeah, Jason.
Coach, can we take the ones that got the 3-point votes and re-vote on them?
All right, then I'll tell you what. Let's bring the 3s over. And I now need to move this thing over, right? I'm going to bring these 3s down and I'm going to create another voting session. And I hate to say it this way, no lollygagging. I'm going to start the session now. You have 2 votes, 1 minute, go. Those are where our votes are. And if there's duplicates, vote on one. Don't vote on the other. If we end up with a split vote between the 2 that are duplicate, it is what it is. We end up with what we end up with. Maybe we'll put them together. We'll see. We'll see. Okay.
We started with
Wow. Look at this. Look at this. We have a clear winner.
Yes.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. As I promised, this is the tough one. I'm going to copy from over here the dysfunction, the purpose. I'm just going to choose at random one of these symptoms. We'll drop them in there. That's okay. We'll drop them in there because your hypothesis here is that this solution you have here should affect one of these symptoms. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Your hypothesis is that by doing this, something here should get affected because you're trying to affect one of those symptoms by doing this. Given that, how are you going to measure it? I'm going to give you guys again 4 minutes to decide for yourself and just throw out ideas. How would you measure that backlog refinement where you're addressing the acceptance criteria, being reviewed and refining it, that adding this is going to demonstrably get us better product functioning by addressing the unrealistic or vague acceptance criteria? Does that make sense how I described it? This is you putting on your experimenter hat. 4 minutes, so grab some stickies and say some things that you could measure that would help you demonstrate that affecting the acceptance criteria is getting you to a better product, helping you get to a better product.
Okay, got it.
Hey, what could you measure? And after we've looked at this, I'm going to take the time that remains and walk us through some examples. I wasn't going to leave you hanging. I brought goodies. Then I'm going to have a provocative question for one of you. Awesome. Got a little bit less than 2 minutes, but you guys are rocking it. Now, some of you may have similar ideas, maybe saying it a different way. So you might want to look around at what the stickies are, and let's look at these really, really quickly. So any number one of these are things that you are theorizing that you can apply a measurement to, that you can directly tie back. Here's the clincher. Directly tie back as impacting the symptom, reducing the dysfunction, and having a positive impact to improve the team's ability to serve their purpose. And really, at the end of the day, this is what dysfunction mapping is about. We're trying to improve the way we work empirically, trying small experiments to do things that we can do together to improve the way we work together. And the thing about this particular approach is, again, it doesn't matter whether you are using Scrum and whether you are using Kanban. And so now we've gone full circle. So here's the provocative question, and I'm going to choose somebody at random. I hate to put him on the spot, but MC, is this someone, a Scrum Master, a coach, for example, is this something they should do by themselves? Jackie,
Yes, sir.
You've experienced this now.
Mhm.
Do you think this is something Jackie should be doing in her living room by herself?
No.
Who do you think Jackie should be including in all of this?
Yeah, but well, it depends. For example, the
That's
topic
fine.
that we're talking about right now, we're talking about something that's affecting the team. And so I would do it with my team.
Awesome. Perfect. Wonderful place to start. And so that's part of the idea behind dysfunction mapping, is that if you're a coach, if you're a Scrum Master, and you've gone through this exercise, the idea is that take what you've done back to those who you serve, share it with them, and say, what do you think we could do together? Because one of the wonderful things about this is because it's an experiment, you can iterate it. It's meant to be iterative and incremental. The thing about doing it this particular way, using this framework called dysfunction mapping, is you're creating a breadcrumb trail. So when it comes for you to demonstrate your value back to your stakeholders, you've got what? Evidence. You've got evidence now of what you've done. Let's look at what this looks like, because I did promise you gifts. And since we're almost done, I'm going to walk you through what it looks like in practice in the class, okay? Because it looks a little different than how I've had you walk through it here in this workshop.
Can I add something, Marcelo?
Yes, Regina.
And then, like, when or why would be the great opportunities to use this, right? So a lot of you do retrospectives,
Yeah.
right? In the retrospectives, many times we do problem-solving exercises.
Mhm.
This is a great technique. It's kind of like a problem-solving exercise that we've done in other areas. So this is really good, Marcelo. For those of you that maybe haven't done any problem-solving exercise, this is a great step to follow, because now you're getting everybody involved and you're narrowing it down to multiple solutions and the brainstorming, and it's the facilitation really of it where the art is as well. So great technique. Thank you, Marcelo.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And there are many other instances where you could apply this. And one of the things that I'll tell you is that at least coming is that there is going to be a form of this for leadership very soon. Okay. And so this example dysfunction map template, which I'm going to leave for you guys to look at, kind of walks you through the thinking behind it, where you're focusing on the first two columns. And you start by not just talking about the dysfunction, but looking at the funnel of things that you are observing between the team and the stakeholders. Talk to them. What are people complaining about? What process isn't working? Are we missing any good practices that we should be? Or like I said, is your spidey sense going off and MC's just feeling it, not feeling it? I'm not feeling it, MC. I'm not feeling the love. You want to start capturing that as your intake funnel for things. And then ask, well, what's missing? What is it that's missing that if we would just have tried to change things would be better serving our needs? It's all about you, Joanne. It's all about your needs. I know. And then theorizing, well, let's be empirical about it. Now, while this example talks about the Scrum Master, the fact is this is the stuff that we teach Kanban management professionals and Kanban coaches as well, is to try small experiments and guess what kind of thing could you do to help improve the way things work so that we're achieving the purpose that we were here for. In Kanban, we would call this, are we being fitter for purpose? And then, of course, well, we have to have some evidence. So how do we measure that stuff is actually having some sort of impact? In other words, what things are we eliminating that because we've eliminated, in other words, they're absent, they are having an impact back on the things that we do want to have. So that's a walkthrough through the board that it looks like. I'm going to leave you here an example board. This is an example of what a dysfunction mapping board could look like with, for example, okay, hey, look, the team's not setting a single goal. I'll walk you through this one. Well, what would be some symptoms of that? Oh, gee, lots of rollover work. I heard that from some of you. Or the daily scrum ends up being like a status update, or, oh shoot, stuff gets stuck in QA, or we're having things come in mid-sprint. Why? Because we don't have a clear single sprint goal as our dysfunction. Well, wait a minute. What purpose does it serve to have a clear single sprint goal? Oh, it enables us to focus on what actually is value generating and enables us to make rapid decisions. Joanne can say, hey, does that support the sprint goal or not? Anu can say, hey, is that really going to help the sprint goal or not before you bring that into the sprint backlog? And so that saves a lot of time. So as a potential solution, this team said, well, you know what? We're going to run a little workshop on what it means to create sprint goals. And to demonstrate why we need to have this sort of workshop, we're going to bring the data from retros of the impact of all that context switching between the 3 different sprint goals that Jackie's team is having to do this. Now, I don't know if they're good at juggling, Jackie, but the data don't look good. Just saying. So with that data and that sprint goal workshop, we're going to then decide how are we going to measure if it's changing or not. Well, since one of the things that Steve said in the retro was, hey, rollover items. Well, let's count them. Do we have as many rollover items as we used to? Before we accept something is done, Steve's going to say, hey, did you look at how this affects the sprint goal? Or if you've got one of those funky Kanban boards where something has to go backwards, how many times has it gone back and forth between the developers and the QA people? And then last but not least, because Anu is tired of having to track it, how many new things are coming into Jira? I'm looking at you, sprint backlog, and then count them. And that's how we'll see if having a single sprint goal, the way that we're doing it, is helping or not. If that goal workshop was effective enough, if having the team assess their own data was effective enough. Why? Because we may have to try to run another experiment. It may have improved it, but we may still be having challenges. In the workshop, you start off with a brand new clean dysfunction map canvas, and you get to play scientist with your team. The idea is, remember I say it on Saturday many, many times, it's just 5 words. You know what I'm going to say. Talk to each other, people. Thank you very much, everybody.